You ever hear about a horse being accused of breaking federal law? Because that's exactly what happened in this wild tale involving a woman, a pond, and a whole lot of drama. But before I dive into the story, let me ask you, have you ever had a neighbor try to run your life with a clipboard and a bad attitude? If so, you're not alone. What started as a peaceful afternoon at a ranch quickly spiraled into chaos when one HOA member decided to take control. And it all began with horses swimming in a pond. So, grab a seat, maybe pour yourself a cup of coffee, and get ready for a story that'll make your jaw drop more than once. And if this sounds like something you've lived through, or just can't believe happened, drop your own experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another wild ride like this. Now, let's begin. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon, sun beating down on the dry Texas land when everything changed. I was out by my pond, same one my grandfather built back in the day, watching Thunder, my favorite horse, splash around with his buddies. Two other horses were there too, Ranger and Scout, both Border Patrol mounts I'd been boarding for a while now. They deserved a break, just like any working animal. Peaceful moment shattered. Here comes Mary Ann, 38 years old, but with enough sass to fill 3 lifetimes. Marching across the fence line like she was starring in her own cop show, phone in hand, streaming live, no doubt, and holding a clipboard like it was a sword. "Stop right there," she yells, full TV drama tone. She claimed I was violating some community standard, contaminating a shared water source, even though that pond had been on my land for generations. I tried to explain, pointed to the fence, showed her where the property lines were, reminded her that I owned the land. But Mary Ann had her own version of the truth. She called the cops, animal abuse, trespassing, the works. 20 minutes later, Officer Dan shows up, old friend of mine. He gave me the look, you know the one, like he couldn't believe he had to be here for this. He listened to Mary Ann rant about destroying community resources, then asked to see my deed. I handed over the paperwork. He flipped through it, sighed, and said, "This pond's on James's land." But Mary Ann wasn't done. Next thing I know, my mailbox is getting tampered with. Mail goes missing. Later, I find her footprints near the box and know exactly who to thank. By morning, she's plastered the neighborhood with flyers claiming I'm running an illegal stable, poisoning the water. My neighbor Claire, who used to work at the bank, came by with a copy of Mary Ann's latest masterpiece. Claire had history with her too, fined once for having wildflowers instead of plain grass. And, get this, Claire had seen Mary Ann doctor videos to make people look bad. Not joking. That afternoon, Mary Ann returns with some guy claiming to be an environmental inspector. He looked scared stiff, clutching a blank clipboard, nervously following her orders as she narrated everything for her live stream audience. She had him scoop samples, whispering for him to mention contamination levels for the camera. Claire and I watched from the porch, realizing she was framing every shot to hide my property lines, spinning this whole thing like I was some outlaw. Honestly, it would have been funny if it weren't so damaging. Things got worse fast. Mary Ann filed complaints, sent fake inspectors, called Animal Welfare Services. A real county inspector showed up, and my horses were healthy, happy, case dismissed. Still, I got hit with a $200 fine for some minor permit she claimed I didn't have. Then people started avoiding me, whispering, talking about that guy with the contaminated pond. She'd poisoned the well, literally and figuratively. That night, Claire and I walked the fence line and found tiny cameras hidden in the bushes, spying on my land. The next day, Mary Ann's back, this time with survey equipment, live streaming again, knocking down parts of my fence, claiming it was community property. One of my horses got spooked and nearly bolted. She laughed, telling me to watch my wallet. That's when I looked straight into her camera and said, "You're recording good," because now I am too. That night, sitting on the porch, I made a decision. I was done letting her run the show. I launched my drone and started filming my own footage. Real evidence, not Mary Ann's fiction. Sure enough, around 2 a.m., there she was, creeping around my pond in full ninja gear, scooping water, snapping photos, and get this, pouring food coloring into the pond to fake contamination for her video. I compiled everything and sent it to the HOA board, to Claire, to everyone. For once, people started seeing the truth. Board members apologized for believing her. Dan opened an investigation. Claire showed me chat logs of neighbors finally questioning Marianne's so-called proof. But Marianne wasn't backing down. Next morning, a news van shows up. She'd contacted the media, spinning her story about illegal livestock and environmental disaster. I showed the reporter my paperwork, invited her to tour the ranch herself. But the segment still painted me as the villain. I lost a cattle buyer. Another client backed out. Claire told me Marianne was walking around showing off printouts of the news, bragging about her vindication. This wasn't personal anymore. It was hitting my livelihood. So I dug deeper into what she stole from my mailbox. Turns out she'd taken documents related to the Border Patrol horses, Ranger and Scout. I called Dan. He was furious. Now we had her on federal mail theft. Claire had her own angle. She discovered Marianne used to be a real estate agent, lost her license for faking documents, inflating values, forging signatures. Suddenly, everything made sense. She'd been running the HOA like her own little kingdom, making up rules, sending threats on official letterhead. At the next HOA meeting, Marianne stood up with her ever-present clipboard and announced she had proof I was harboring government property. Those 2 horses. She waved the stolen letter on livestream, claiming I was committing federal crimes. Room went silent. I knew she'd twisted a legal agreement into her latest weapon. That night, I couldn't sleep, wondering how she turned a routine boarding arrangement into a scandal. Next morning, I called Dana from Border Patrol. She was furious and promised to send official documentation to clear things up. Meanwhile, Claire found Marianne forging more documents at the public library, printing on HOA letterhead, making copies of who knows what. Then came the fake Border Patrol letter delivered to my door, threatening prosecution unless I handed over the horses. I spotted all the inconsistencies. Wrong formatting, made-up signature. We needed to expose her publicly. So Claire and I hatched a plan. I called Marianne, told her I was ready to confess at the next HOA meeting. She set it up as her grand finale. Cameras everywhere. Crowd packed in. I started my confession. Midway through, Claire hits play on the projector, and boom. Drone footage starts rolling. Marianne trespassing, tampering with the pond, coaching her inspector to lie. The room erupted. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Then, like clockwork, Dana walks in, Border Patrol badge in hand, and tells the crowd, "My boarding arrangement is legit. She's the one faking everything." Color drained from Marianne's face. She tried to shut down the laptop, shouting about doctored footage, but the damage was done. Within hours, neighbors who'd been scared before came forward with their own stories. Mrs. Lang, fined for a ceramic gnome her husband gave her. The Ruiz family threatened with fake liens. Marianne's house was searched. Dan built a case: mail theft, harassment, evidence tampering, impersonating federal officials. HOA board demanded her resignation. When she threatened to sue, nobody blinked. Claire got elected HOA president in a landslide. Marianne was charged, convicted, and ordered to pay back nearly $20,000, plus probation and community service. Whole neighborhood came together stronger than ever, throwing the biggest barbecue my ranch had ever seen. Even Dana brought her family. Claire kept everyone laughing with her spot-on Karen impressions. Mrs. Lang gave me a wooden sign: Thompson Ranch, where horses swim free and Karens get served justice. You can't make this stuff up. As the party wound down and I stood by the pond, Thunder, Whisper, Storm, Ranger, and Scout grazing peacefully in the dusk, I finally felt that old sense of home again. Turns out, the real cure for an HOA Karen isn't a bigger argument or more drama. It's a community that's tired of being bullied, a handful of good neighbors and a stubborn streak a mile wide. Marianne tried to tear us apart, but she ended up bringing us together. A few months later, I heard she tried pulling the same stunt in another town. But word had spread. They were ready for her. Seems like you can't outrun your own mess forever. And as I sit here watching the pond reflect the stars, I wonder how many people out there are fighting their own Marianne. Maybe now they know what to do. Moral lesson. Sometimes the truth doesn't speak for itself. You have to give it a voice, a camera, and a few good friends.